After the conclusion of the exam, a total of 42 selected individuals were reported to the dean. In response, Yi Xian extended his gratitude to everyone. He informed them that there were no rules at the moment, but assured them that rules would be established soon. He also mentioned that although there were only 4 cultivation instructors, students were free to choose their instructors based on their own abilities. Upon hearing this, one of the students expressed joyous celebration, while others engaged in conversations amongst themselves about whom they would prefer to follow. In the meantime, Mu Yun introduced the 4 instructor puppets positioned to their left. He explained that students could select a mentor by placing their name tags on these puppets. Prompted by Mu Yun's announcement, a flurry of excitement ensued among the students, resembling a bustling fish market. One student boldly declared their intention to choose the dean, another asserted their determination not to let anyone take Sister Ji as their mentor, and yet another confidently claimed their decision to follow Instructor Bai. Amidst the commotion, Mu Yun encouraged them to maintain their composure. Meanwhile, Yi Xian directed a question to Bai Zhe, inquiring whether he had invited a scholar to join them. Bai Zhe promptly confirmed that the scholars had indeed arrived. Shifting his attention, Yi Xian pondered whether the invited instructor was indeed Miss Lu. Playfully, Miss Mu interjected, asking if she wasn't welcome. Yi Xian warmly assures her that she is very much welcomed. However, he playfully questions her resolve to become a mentor at Kanglin Academy, noting the relatively modest salary. Miss Lu responded confidently, assuring Yi Xian that the salary was not an issue. Furthermore, Miss Lu introduced the 2 esteemed elders accompanying her, Mu Yuan and Feng Lan, both renowned scholars in the Jiang Kingdom. Yi Xian introduced himself with a respectful bow to the elders. In turn, the elders humbly suggested that excessive politeness was unnecessary. Yi Xian then proceeded to inform them that Miss Lu and the 2 elders would oversee the academic aspects of the disciples' education. As for the curriculum, they were given the freedom to decide what to teach based on their expertise. During their discussion, Elder Mu Yuan raised a query about Yi Xian's decision to reintroduce academic classes, as he was aware that both Kangmu and Kanglin academies had abolished such classes centuries ago. Yi Xian responded by sharing his conviction that a person's worth should not be solely determined by their physical strength. He emphasized that while strength was important to survive in this world, being a good human being held equal importance. Impressed by this perspective, Mu Yuan commented on the rarity of such thinking, while Feng Lan noted that the person Miss Lu favored was truly exceptional. Acknowledging their praise with a modest bow, Yi Xian expressed gratitude, humbly remarking on their kindness. He then turned his appreciation towards Miss Lu, who appeared slightly surprised by the gesture. Prompted to explain, Miss Lu revealed that it was actually the 9th princess who had implored her to come. Thus, Yi Xian's gratitude should be directed toward her. In response, Yi Xian stated that he would express his gratitude to the 9th princess in person someday. In a midnight scene within the corridors, Yi Xian's steps abruptly halted as he reprimanded an individual for trailing him instead of resting in her room. Curious about his cousin's intent, Yi Xian questioned her purpose for following him. As she struggled for an answer, Yi Xian urged her to respond promptly, noting that she had been following him throughout the day. Drawing closer to her face, he reiterated his question about her motives for trailing him. Flustered, Yi Jia addressed Yi Xian as cousin. Swiftly, Yi Xian demanded that she address him as Dean. Complying with his request, Yi Jia inquired about Linger's whereabouts, explaining that she had searched for her without success. Yi Xian pointed out her past mistreatment of Linger before questioning her sudden interest in finding her. With that said, Yi Xian entered his room, leaving her with an instruction to focus on her training. Left to herself, a tear falls on her hand as she comes to the conclusion that she and Yi Xian are still a family. Meanwhile, within the palace of the Jiang Kingdom, the king engaged with the envoy from Chu, seeking information about his lord's condition. Responding with a mix of indignation and sarcasm, the envoy from Chu expressed backhanded gratitude to the Jiang Kingdom, implying that his lord was facing difficulties because of them. In response, a distant official retorted that the envoy's words held no true substance, while another opined that the envoy was likely present to cause trouble. Unfazed, the envoy reiterated his claim that his lord's health had deteriorated due to the actions of the Jiang Kingdom. Infuriated by this accusation, one of the officials ordered the envoy to be thrown out, an action met with the envoy's vehement protest against such a display of force. The king intervened, ordering the commotion to cease and allowing the envoy to provide an explanation. Addressing the king as the ruler of Jiang, the envoy from Chu pointed out that their third prince had been killed by Yi Xian within the secret realm of Ning. Using this as the foundation, the envoy demanded an explanation from the Jiang kingdom. To his surprise, the king responds by questioning his motive for seeking an explanation. The king points out that battles within the secret realm are intended to be matters of life and death, wondering why the prince chose to participate despite this understanding. He further highlights the prince's decision to enter the secret realm resulted in his demise, yet the envoy from Chu is shifting blame to others. With that pointed out, he questions the logic behind such an assertion. Trembling with anger, the envoy daringly pointed at the king as he questioned whether the king was trying to shield Yi Xian. With unwavering determination, the king affirmed his stance and boldly declared his commitment to protecting Yi Xian. With this revelation, the king questioned the envoy regarding their intended course of action. In response, the envoy from Chu posed a question of his own, whether the Jiang kingdom was prepared to become an adversary of the Chu kingdom and potentially instigate a war between the two nations. In response, the king clarifies that they harbor no desire for hostility with the Chu kingdom. However, he underscores that Yi Xian is a national figure within their realm, and any attempt to harm him would be a challenge to the dignity of the Jiang kingdom. Unsatisfied by the king's stance, the envoy warned of the impending conflict and left, declaring the possibility of an upcoming war. As they watched the envoy depart, one of the officials questioned whether war could be precipitated so lightly. He went on to wonder if the king of Chu had no regard for the welfare of his own people. In response, another official characterized the king of Chu as a tyrant, implying that he wouldn't let anything deter his pursuits, even if it meant disregarding the lives of his subjects. With a somber realization, this official contemplated the potential consequences for the people of Jiang in the event of an actual war. Drawing the king's attention, an elder introduced as a stone chamber officer invoked two principles: that the well-being of the kingdom should take precedence, and that the people were a guiding light. Acknowledging the elder's point, the king affirms his understanding. However, he questions the notion of maintaining a kingdom if its people are lost. Additionally, he highlights that Yi Xian is a soldier of his kingdom, and if he were to send him to the Chu kingdom for reconciliation, it would equate to relinquishing both a valuable asset and an insult to their nation's prestige. Challenging this perspective, the elder pointed to the historical camaraderie between the Chu and Yu kingdoms. He suggested that these two realms had held a long-standing interest in their country and might unite against them. Responding to this, an elder named Lin Zile, a martial figure of the Jiang kingdom, reassures that there's no need to fear them. He asserts that if a fight is what they want, then they should be prepared for it. He confidently states that he has never been afraid of them. Hearing this, the elder posed a strategic question about the potential of an unexpected assault by the Ning kingdom, causing the martial figure to reconsider his stance. Reinforcing his argument, the elder elaborated that they could still withstand the combined power of the Chu and Yu kingdoms. However, should they manage to provoke the attention of the Ning kingdom, or if the Ning kingdom exploited the chaos to launch an attack, their focus would be divided. To compound matters, the elder highlighted the close proximity of the Ning kingdom to their own, coupled with its robust military and wealthy population. Upon hearing the elder's analysis, the other officials concurred, acknowledging that the involvement of the Ning kingdom would significantly diminish their chances of victory. In agreement with this perspective, the king announced his intention to dispatch a representative to negotiate with the ruler of the Ning kingdom. Suddenly, a voice pierced the air, capturing the attention of everyone present in the hall. As their focus shifted to the source of the voice, the king exclaimed in surprise, realizing that it was Yi Xian, accompanied by Miss Lu. Yi Xian reiterated his request, formally asking the king for permission to travel to the Ning kingdom. Expressing his concern, the king highlighted the historical animosity between the Ning and Jiang kingdoms. Before the king could finish his thought, Yi Xian interjected, reassuring him not to worry. He emphasized his ability to protect himself and argued that the Ning kingdom wouldn't risk killing him, as doing so would lead to widespread resentment. Listening to Yi Xian's conviction, the king turned to Miss Lu for her opinion. Miss Lu responded affirmatively, stating that she believed it was worth a try and encouraging the king to grant Yi Xian the opportunity. With full trust in Miss Lu's judgment, the king swiftly agreed. He issued a formal decree to send Yi Xian to the Ning kingdom for negotiations, specifying that only success was acceptable. Failure was not an option. Furthermore, the king added that if Yi Xian were to fail, he himself would face the might of the Ning's forces with unwavering determination. Acknowledging the king's orders, Yi Xian accepted and agreed to fulfill the role entrusted to him. Upon his arrival in the Ning kingdom, Yi Xian took in his surroundings, his mind occupied with thoughts about locating the envoy arranged by Miss Liu. In the midst of his observations, an elderly figure caught his attention, his wave of greeting warm and inviting. Stepping off the cloud boat, Yi Xian found himself met with the elder's respectful welcome and news of an upcoming dinner. Despite this gracious reception, Yi Xian's impatience got the better of him. He approached the elder with determination, urgently conveying his intent to head straight to the Ning palace. He emphasized the pressing nature of his business. While they lingered at the entrance of the palace, Yi Xian's patience began to wear thin. He voiced his perplexity at the absence of attendants, noting that he had already been waiting for half an hour. Flustered by this, the elder admitted to his own confusion. Growing weary of waiting, Yi Xian braced himself to forcefully enter the palace, voicing his inability to wait further, knowing his life was at stake if he failed. Sensing Yi Xian's intent, the elder panically tried to dissuade him. However, a voice, tinged with interrogation, suddenly surprised them. Turning his attention to the source of the voice, Yi Xian broke into a sweat as memories flooded back, reminders of the passionate night they had shared. Tuba Yen questioned Yi Xian about his method of entering the palace, to which he responded casually, stating that he had simply walked in. He then inquired about her presence, curious if she was following him. Nervous about the situation, the elder urged Yi Xian to show respect to Tuba Yen. In response, Yi Xian draped his arm over the elder's shoulder, his tone assuring as he explained that they were ambassadors sent by the Jiang kingdom to meet the Lord of Ning. He emphasized that there was no cause for fear. Despite Yi Xian's assurance, Tuba Yan's irritation becomes evident as she readies herself for action, her cheek coursing through her fist as she admonished him for being noisy. Witnessing this, a surge of panic envelopes Yi Xian as he questions Tuba Yan's intent, urgently noting their location within the Ning palace. Reacting swiftly, Yi Xian infuses his arms with his qi, a defensive stance against her impending attack. The power of her strike generates a shockwave, forcibly propelling bystanders away from the scene. Continuing her attack, a minor explosion sends Yi Xian propelling backward, his feet dragging along the ground as the clash unfolds. Despite his evident improvement in strength compared to before, Yi Xian couldn't help but acknowledge the substantial gap between him and Tuba Yen. As he glanced at the fallen elder, Yi Xian realized he couldn't afford to squander any more time on their confrontation as there were more pressing matters at hand. With this realization, Yi Xian prompted the elder to rise, emphasizing the urgency of moving to the Lord's Hall to await the Lord's arrival. However, the flustered elder corrected him. Perplexed by the elder, Yi Xian inquired about the issue, highlighting that his life was at stake if he remained. Before the elder could reply, Tuba Yen intervened, asserting that they could return now and affirming that she had no intentions of waging war against Jiang, let alone forming alliances with the Chu and Yu kingdoms. Baffled, Yi Xian questioned her identity, and the elder revealed the truth: she was none other than Tuba Yen, the ruler of the Ning kingdom. Stunned by this revelation, Yi Xian's mind retraced his steps to the past, realizing that he had shared an intimate exchange with the very ruler of the Ning kingdom. Flustered and overwhelmed by this realization, Yi Xian's thoughts scattered as he struggled to regain his composure. Observing his state, Tuba Yen urged him to cease his confusion. She then clarified her stance. She was notifying him that the Ning kingdom would abstain from participating in any wars and would not align with the Jiang kingdom. Acknowledging her words, Yi Xian expressed his understanding and gratitude as he rose to his feet. However, Tuba Yen dismissed his thanks, stating that her actions weren't aimed at assisting him personally but were driven by the well-being of their respective kingdoms and societies. She emphasized the shared border between Jiang and Ning, underscoring the idea that a neighboring kingdom's trouble would inevitably impact the other. As Tuba Yen prepared to take her leave, she emphasized her commitment to not letting the instigator evade consequences. Before departing, she imparted a crucial piece of information: the allied army of Chu and Yu, numbering 180,000 strong, had reached the border of Jiang in the morning. Adding intrigue to the situation, she noted their nocturnal assistance from the Great Cloud and the skilled individuals of the Dark World. Given Jiang's limited strength, Tuba Yen believed they would struggle to resist. Prompted by this revelation, Yi Xian sought guidance, inquiring about her proposed solution. Tuba Yen responded by revealing the existence of a mercenary group in the vicinity. Though consisting of only 12 members, each possessed formidable prowess in the secluded realm. Elaborating further, she suggested that if Yi Xian had the means, he could employ their services. Deep in thought, Yi Xian contemplated her proposition, seemingly considering the potential course of action. In a later part of the day, at the Ning border Forged Knife Mountain, Yi Xian's journey comes to a pause as he arrives at a settlement. Here, he comes across a muscular man who is in the process of skinning a deer. Upon approaching the man, Yi Xian inquires whether he is affiliated with the Forged Blade Mountain mercenary group. Appearing disinterested, the man doesn't make eye contact with Yi Xian as he queries the purpose of Yi Xian's presence. In response, Yi Xian tosses a card in his direction, and the guy skillfully catches it with his mouth. Yi Xian then suggests discussing business with him. Observing the card, the muscular man recognizes its significance to the drunken immortal house. Recognizing who he's dealing with, the muscular man invites Yi Xian to follow him. Moving deeper into the mountain, Yi Xian and the muscular man eventually stop, and the latter informs another individual that they have a new business opportunity. In response, the girl questions the nature of the business. Yi Xian responds, saying it involves protecting people. Following this, Yi Xian smirks as he inwardly questions whether they are truly worth hundreds of millions. Manifesting his sword in the air, Yi Xian catches it as he proceeds to charge toward the woman with his signature move. Reacting swiftly, the woman kicks a bucket of water, manipulating it to create a cover as she questions the source of Yi Xian's confidence as a sword master. Unfazed, Yi Xian maintains his momentum and eventually meets her counterattack with his sword. However, in a single graceful motion, the woman easily overpowers Yi Xian, sending him to the ground while his sword embeds itself in the ground. Convinced of her strength, Yi Xian smiles as he compliments her skills. He then offers to hire their legion for a month. Realizing that Yi Xian was testing her older sister, the muscular man erupts in anger and threatens him. However, the older sister gestures for him to cease, and she proceeds to question Yi Xian about the potential opponents they would be facing. Yi Xian responded, stating that the adversaries they would be facing are the Great Cloud, the Dark World, and the Kangmu Academy. Upon hearing this, the elder sister insisted on tripling the price for their services. Yi Xian proposed an alternative, suggesting that they double the price but also include an earth-ranked martial arts skill. Taking a moment to consider, Yi Xian inquired about their stance on the matter. With a smile, the leader of the mercenaries agreed. Prompted by her agreement, the other members of the mercenary group revealed themselves. With everyone assembled, the leader asked about their departure time. Observing the group, Yi Xian confirmed that they all possess formidable strength above the sky realm. Responding to her query, Yi Xian stated that there was no need to rush. He speculated that they might not often have opportunities for business and might not have substantial funds. Therefore, he suggested embarking on a significant endeavor. The leader placed her hand on her chest, questioning the scale of this undertaking. Somewhat flustered by her gesture, Yi Xian questioned her actions, stating that such a gesture wasn't necessary. However, clarifying the situation, the leader produced a piece of bread from her jacket, expressing her hunger and asking Yi Xian to explain his grand plan. Observing this, Yi Xian slumped his body, realizing the misunderstanding and noting that women often have a strong affinity for food. Seated on the ground, he picked up a stick and began to explain. Yi Xian revealed that several kingdoms were preparing to launch an attack on the Jiang kingdom. However, he pointed out that this crisis could also be seen as an opportunity. Responding to his vague statement, the leader urged him to be direct and concise. In response, Yi Xian gestured with the stick, proposing a plan to rob these attacking kingdoms of their resources, wealth, and treasures. One of the mercenaries repeated his words incredulously, while another voiced concern, stating that the plan was risky and something they hadn't attempted before. Undeterred, Yi Xian commented that they were accustomed to danger but seemed hesitant now. He suggested splitting the loot evenly, and challenged them to show courage. In agreement, the leader supported his proposal, acknowledging his authority in the matter. Yi Xian responded positively, suggesting that their destination should be the Tang Kingdom. The leader's whistle echoes through the air, and a pack of wolves emerges from the rugged mountain terrain. The sudden appearance startles Yi Xian, who recognizes them as demonic beasts. Baffled by this situation, Yi Xian notes that there are few demonic beasts in the Ning territory and questions their origin. In response, the leader, now riding one of the wolves, asks Yi Xian about his own demonic beast. Yi Xian responds awkwardly, explaining that he doesn't have one and asking if he could borrow one. The leader obliges and introduces him to a fierce-looking wolf, noting that despite its appearance, it's actually very gentle. Yi Xian expresses his thanks, though with a doubtful expression and seemingly avoiding the creature's eyes. With arrangements settled, Yi Xian and the mercenaries continue on their journey. Later that night, within the Tang Kingdom, the leader discreetly positions herself behind a tree, assessing the surrounding walls. Addressing her group, she reveals that the city is well guarded with stationed soldiers. She cautions that if a battle starts, the Tang army would swiftly return to defend, jeopardizing their survival. In response, Yi Xian asks about the location of their provisions and ammunition. The leader informs him that they're stored in the barracks on the north side of the city, which is heavily defended. Following this, the leader asks Yi Xian about his plan and how they should proceed. Yi Xian suggests that he will divert the soldiers' attention while the rest of the group forcefully enters the barracks. He proposes seizing the money and destroying the provisions as part of the strategy. Agreeing to the plan, the leader signals her comrades to follow as they charge towards the enemies. Following their devised strategy, Yi Xian initiates an assault on their adversaries, smashing through the gate and incapacitating the guards in the process. Alerted by Yi Xian's attack, multiple guards rush towards him. Yet, with a swift swing of his sword, Yi Xian forces them to keep their distance. Meanwhile, the leader and her group surge towards the gate, causing the guards to realize that Yi Xian had merely served as a diversion. Addressing the muscular man as Lin Han, the leader issued a command for him to hold his ground. Lin Han responds, urging her to press forward, as he believes their chances of success would diminish if any enemies got past him. Following this exchange, the mercenaries continued to defend their position, while the leader entered a nearby door. Within the room lay several chests, which greeted her presence. Opening one of the chests, the leader verified its contents before stowing everything away in her ring. Just in the nick of time, Lin Han reminded her to hasten. Prompted by his words, the leader confronted the enemy with renewed fervor. She skillfully employed her whip as she directed her group to remain close, ensuring a path of escape. With their adversaries neutralized, the leader instructed her group to assist Yi Xian. Meanwhile, despite valiantly facing off against the surrounding enemies alone, Yi Xian gradually came to the realization that his stamina was waning. At that critical moment, the leader and her group arrived, positioning themselves beside Yi Xian. The mercenary force launched a coordinated assault against the opposing enemies. Yet, in a surprising turn of events, Yi Xian suddenly detected an irregularity as the leader's attack closed in on him. However, Yi Xian's confusion was swiftly dispelled, as the leader's strike found its mark on an enemy soldier behind him. She quizzically questioned the enemy, asking whether they had sought her permission before attempting to attack him. Subsequently, the leader extends her hand to Yi Xian, urging him to join her. In response, Yi Xian compliments her impeccable timing as he takes her hand, using his sword to fend off the approaching enemies as he leaps to safety. He expresses gratitude to the leader for her assistance. The leader playfully mentions that if Yi Xian dies, she wouldn't be able to ask for payment. However, it becomes clear that enemy reinforcements have arrived, complicating their situation. Reacting swiftly, Yi Xian proposes that they head to the other side for an escape. The leader, however, points out that going to the Tang hinterland wouldn't be strategically advantageous for them. Yi Xian counters that they are under attack from both sides, leaving them with no choice but to make their move. With Yi Xian's persistent urging, the leader concedes, acknowledging the risk as they make their escape. Meanwhile, the enemy commander, Pei Xiaohu, commands his troops to stop pursuit. He orders the identification of the culprits, and requests aid from the Lord of the Kingdom, asking for the deployment of the Black Sword Guards. He further orders the recall of the 30,000 iron horsemen and the blockade of the surrounding borders, determined to prevent the group from leaving the Tang Kingdom. After 2 hours of running deep in the dense forest within the Tang Kingdom, Yi Xian and the group eventually halted their movement. The leader reveals that they've managed to steal a total of 70 million gold coins. Alongside this, they've obtained 8 pieces of exceptionally fine spirit weapons in the golden box. These weapons are valued at around 5 million each. Upon hearing this revelation, Lin Han quickly calculated that it amounted to hundreds of millions. Another member chimed in, considering it not an enormous sum but certainly sufficient to sustain them for a while. Observing the discussion, Yi Xian caught the leader's attention. She instructed him to take half of the spoils, while the remaining half would be distributed among the rest of their group. Yi Xian, however, shook his head in response, asserting that everyone had contributed equally, and thus he wasn't entitled to such a large share. Instead, he proposed a more equitable division based on the number of people present. The leader questioned the sincerity of his suggestion. Yi Xian responds with conviction, emphasizing that he's absolutely serious about it. The mercenary group responded with joyful agreement, praising his sense of fairness. Later that night, the leader and Yi Xian shared a piece of bread. During their quiet moment, Yi Xian inquired about their journey from the Middle Kingdom to Qinzhou, considering the significant distance between the two places. The leader explained that it had involved a combination of experience and infiltration. Shifting the conversation, she noted that she hadn't yet learned his name. Yi Xian introduced himself, and then turned the question back to her. Upon hearing his name, the leader recognized Yi Xian as the renowned dean of Kanglin Academy. In return, she identified herself as Lu Banzwang from the Lu family of the Middle Kingdom, expressing her pleasure at becoming acquainted with him. Unexpectedly, Yi Xian's expression abruptly shifted as he deduced that someone had hired her to assassinate him. Banzwang assured him, revealing that the offered price had been paltry, leading her to decline the proposition. Shifting the conversation, Banzwang raises a new topic, asking Yi Xian if he had ever considered venturing to the Middle Kingdom. She pointed out the growing influence of his Kanglin Academy in that region. Yi Xian's response was indifferent, stating that the Kanglin in the Middle Kingdom has nothing to do with him. However, he expressed an interest in visiting the Middle Kingdom someday, albeit not in the present circumstances. He explained that he had a myriad of tasks to complete before he could consider such a journey, emphasizing that only when everything was settled would he be able to truly explore. In the midst of their conversation, the sound of birds in the surrounding mountains alerts them to the arrival of someone. The group prepare themselves, with Yi Xian cautioning everyone to stay alert. Responding to this, Banzwang instructed everyone to assume defensive positions as they observed the unfolding events from above. Upon arriving at the scene, the leader of the enemy forces issued commands for his troops to track them down. Observing the situation, Lin Han praises Yi Xian for attracting attention, noting the significant efforts the formidable experts from the Great Cloud Empire were making to eliminate him. He pointed out their advanced skill levels, all at the peak of the secluded realm. Amidst the perplexity, Yi Xian humorously admitted that he couldn't fathom why he held such a prominent position in their crosshairs. In the midst of the tension, a cavalryman's voice emerged, clarifying that the troops approaching were allies, urging against any unnecessary conflict. In unison, the disciplined forces of the Tang Kingdom, composed of the Death Guard and the Black Sword Guard, acknowledged the alliance respectfully. Surveying the dire circumstances, Banzwang turned to Yi Xian for guidance on their next steps. With a resolute stance, Yi Xian decisively ordered the elimination of all adversaries. With strategic insight, Yi Xian issued another directive, commanding his allies to secure the enemy's crossbows. In response to Yi Xian's instructions, Banzwang and her companions descended gracefully from the trees. Her voice carries a sense of urgency as she instructs him to eradicate the enemy within 15 minutes, while she takes charge of facing off against the pursuing cavalry. With his sword in his hand, Yi Xian rallies the remaining mercenaries as he gracefully descends to the ground, skillfully dispatching 2 opponents before being noticed by the enemies. Reacting to this, the enemy forces prepare their crossbows and tension fills the air as they release their arrows. Yi Xian reacts quickly, positioning himself as he activates his earth armor. He readies his sword and swiftly destroys all incoming arrows with a single swing. He then transitions to using his fists, knocking down one of the keyboard warriors among the enemies, while the others flee for their lives. In the midst of the chaos, an enemy notices a sharp whip about to encircle his neck, while Banzwang's voice rings out, remarking that escape is not going to be easy while concurrently ending the escaping enemies with a single swing of her weapon. Addressing Yixian, Ban Zhuang comments on the extraordinary skills of their enemies and the unusual number they're facing. Yixian responds by asking if she regrets accepting his commission. As Ban Zhuang effortlessly defeats an enemy, she replies that the mercenary group never regrets their actions. In the meantime, Lin Han informs his sister about incoming support for the enemy. Ban Zhuang asks about the number of incoming reinforcements, and Lin Han replies that there are quite a lot of them.